Hey everyone, I'm Mike, and welcome back to the channel. I'm joined today with my bro Isaac,
Yo,
and we're here to talk about some video games. More specifically, we're here to talk about the Xbox layoffs that happened very recently. Unfortunately, Phil Spencer had to break the news that over 9,000, or it wasn't even Phil Spencer himself, but someone over at Microsoft announced that over 9,000 jobs are being cut, including some people from the Xbox division, is what I meant to say. Unfortunately, a lot of game companies, or not game companies, some developers got laid off. More specifically, the Initiative, the company that was working on what was the game? The Perfect Dark game. Yeah, they got that game got shut down. That initiative is being dismantled completely, to the dismay of many people, because a lot of people were looking forward to the new Perfect Dark game. Me personally, I wasn't looking forward to too much. I believe Isaac was right. Right? Were you looking
no.
forward to it? Nope. No. Okay. Okay. Well, that's good to know. But yeah, besides that, just a lot of like uncertainty when it comes to the Xbox brand at the moment, because like the founder of like the Dishonored studio, Arcane Studios, the people that made Redfall, and also Redfall, but yeah, they have basically been very upset by this as well. John Romero, who is the one of the legendary creators of the Doom franchise, who also working with Xbox, is had a lot to say as well, and a lot of it just also calls into question the whole Game Pass and how valuable it is as a service from both the developers and the customers perspective. And there's just a lot of just like uncertainty with it, and basically just brings into the bigger question: is Xbox as a brand basically cooked at this point? What do you have to say?
Well, just to kind of cover about what you said, yeah, 9,000 people were let go
Yeah,
from their jobs, and a lot of the important titles that were. So to kind of mention off the titles that you mentioned, obviously was the Perfect Dark game, the Initiative, where it was canceled and the studio was closed. You had the Everwild game that was created by Rare was also
yeah, I remember
canceled,
that.
which was in very long development. I think what been like almost 4 or 5 years in development, but probably even
Yeah,
longer than that. Um, there was a ZeniMax online game, Project Blackboard, that was just canceled, which was an MMO game that was shelved.
yeah, the people that made the Elder Scrolls Online.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Romero
Romero.
Games, which is what's the unannounced game that you mentioned. The 50% of Forza is being let go. Their staff of Forza Motorsports being let go, although they will continue to move their project ongoing. Blizzard's Warcraft Rumble game that had content support will now cease to end.
That's the mobile game, right?
Correct. Was
Yeah,
a mobile
like
game,
yeah,
and then Call of Duty support teams have been laid off from Raven, High Moon, and Sledgehammer
Sledgehammer.
Studios. Were all being let go, and this is what covered within most of the situation of the let goes. Other than that, in terms of my whole situation, I think it sucks once again to be here to report about anybody losing their jobs in a tough economy and what we're leaving though. But like you said, I think it is a little bit concerning because it is come from Xbox, who for the longest period of time has spent more of their time buying out all these studios and
Mm-hmm.
acquiring them. It seemed like their strategy shifted from them making games and just buying out other studios and letting them do the work. And you feel like a strategy like this can only go so far. One, because you basically almost slowly taking up too much of the market to the point where you're almost it almost like seems like you're competing against yourself in terms of cannibalizing yourself and within other games and markets and stuff like that. So now it just seems like, along with just everything that's happened in his economy, it just seems like they're starting to cut ship and move forward.
Yeah, very much so. I've really never been a fan of big fish eating little fish when it comes to like this
Mhm.
whole system of buying like all these game studios and trying to put them under one roof to make as much money as possible when you have multiple projects going on at the same time and just trying to have a lot of micromanaging between all these projects when like it would be much better to have as very few like companies to work with and let them do their thing instead of just trying to like yeah it's always been a crappy business decision
I
like
think why it's so tough right now, even as big as Microsoft, there's just so many things that you have to watch and look and like I said,
yeah
micromanage and look over in terms of teams and stuff like that. Now and it's I could understand why a lot of these studio devs would jump on the offer to jump on Xbox because in your mind as a small studio dev it means they'll give you more access to money, more access to resources, and hopefully be able to
yeah
pump up more of your games. And unfortunately what we're seeing right now, it just seems like it's just another thing to add more into the portfolio than them actually being focused on making a lot of great games. Like I said, Perfect Dark was one of those fan favorite games that came from the days of Rare back in Nintendo 64. That was like, and the fact that I remember when Xbox stole Rare from Nintendo, like back in the day, that was
mm-hmm
such a big deal
it was
because this was the same team that worked alongside with them when making the Donkey Kong games, and then knocked it out of the park was the GoldenEye, which later on led to the creation of Perfect Dark, because that was originally supposed to be the GoldenEye sequel,
mm-hmm
so switched over. So I mean, there was a lot of so I to kind of lose that and to move over to Microsoft and see what Microsoft has done. Sure, they've done a couple of cool things like Banjo Kazooie games, but they really were not the same when they used to be on Nintendo. And to see kind of the Perfect Dark franchise go the way that it's gone, man, it really just kind of shows you how thin Microsoft has been. Heck, they don't even really focus on Halo anymore, and that was their biggest. I mean, that
yeah
was their flagship
I mean
franchise that put Microsoft on the map. They don't even focus on that well.
it's
So
really weird like the thing is I feel like the Xbox has lost its way as because they used to be that brand for like quote unquote dude bros, where like games where you want serious, mature or games kind of experience, and Halo was kind of that big franchise. Is like this isn't for babies. This is for like serious gamers, and they've kind of just like leaned away from that and I don't blame them for trying to lean away from that image, but I feel like if they could recapture that image, it would be really good for them to just make them stand out from everyone else, from their competition. And yeah, them dropping the ball on the Halo franchise, which used to be their flagship like franchise, is just kind of you think Microsoft Xbox would put all their chips onto that. But with the work that 343 Industries, I believe now Halo Studios, has done with Halo Infinite, it's just like they it's not even just the developers dropping the ball. It's the whole like the publishing just dropped the ball because the publisher because they have this the publisher still has the last say and they let them put that out there and it's just like that's good enough for them. A franchise that has been extremely well selling, especially up to Halo Reach. I believe Halo Reach was considered the last best Halo game, and then every Halo game after that has basically been like,
rough sledding.
yeah, exactly. Halo 5 wasn't received very well. Halo Infinite wasn't received very well, and it's just like that's two strikes against like 343, and it's like to keep this developer working on this huge franchise is just it's just like what are they thinking, right?
I Again, I really don't know where the future of Xbox is going, and like you said, it seems like Xbox to the point has kind of spread its. It really doesn't seem like it's focusing mostly on game development and making games themselves. Like you said,
Mhm.
acquiring and more of distribution right now. We do know that they have a new handheld system that's coming out really
Yeah,
soon.
the ROG Xbox Ally or
Yeah,
whatever it
the
is.
Ally. So I mean that seems to be their biggest focus right now. And to think about in terms of just Microsoft, really their gaming division seems to be the one that's technically driving Microsoft at the point. Even it's not it's not a lot of their programs anymore. It's not like Microsoft Word or or PowerPoint right now. It's really their gaming division. So you know,
Yeah.
it's weird to see Xbox in this situation the same way they were kind of in. Well, man, you brought up Dreamcast though, but Dreamcast was an unfortunate situation where
Yeah,
they
I
missed
know.
out on technology that was
Yeah.
advancing and they never could capitalize on it. If Dreamcast would have capitalized on say having a DVD player around that time, who knows if Sega would still be in the console business though. But
Yeah.
that's another story for another day though. With this just seems to be Microsoft trying to flex their money and buying all these acquisitions and and instead of them trying to produce really good content, it just seems like that hasn't really it's a strategy that really seems to not work out in their favor. And it just seems like everything's just spread so thin to the point where now they have to kind of trim the fat on a lot of these studios. And I think it's unfortunate too because a lot of these studios hold some really cool games, you know, that
But
we
yeah.
were all looking forward to. Like Everwild, again, it's not a game that I'm looking that that didn't have my appeal, but I am curious to see what kind of interesting gameplays or stories that it would have for that. Now that that's going to be lost in the wild, who
Yeah,
knows where Rare is going to be in this whole
obviously.
situation right
And
now? It just
then
seems like it's a former shell of itself.
yeah, and then there's also the situation regarding Game Pass and whether or not it's a valid thing for like developers to like put their games on because of how cheap it is and how a lot of games are are available on Game Pass day one with a retail purchase. I feel like if you just have this game, if people are mostly just subscribed to game matches for like what $15 a month or something like that, and like how much are the developers really making on this service? And you also have to remember that they tend to give out Game Pass for free. Like,
Hmm.
yeah, so a lot of people tend to just play like a
Right.
game they're very interested in on Game Pass, get a free code for their first time using it, play that one game, beat it, and move on. Biggest example being Hi-Fi Rush, a game that a lot of people really love to play, really say it was a really good game. I really like that game, but it didn't sell. But a lot of people say that it sold well, but the company got shut down, even though Hi-Fi Rush was a really successful game. But here's the thing. I don't think that game really was as successful as they claim it was because if it really was successful, why did the studio get shut down? Because for what I like to think a lot of people play that game on Game Pass day one, beat it with a free subscription and never actually bought it because that's exactly what I did. I feel like a lot of people did that.
Yeah. You might listen, and you probably could be right. That could have been one of the strategies that they used to lure people into the Game Pass situation. Yeah, you do worry now. Again, I've never used Game Pass. Yeah, I assume like what's the monthly subscription base? Because but Sony does the same thing too. They have their own kind of version of that. Well, like PlayStation Plus.
Yes. Well, yeah, PlayStation Plus.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so they have their kind of subscription base as well. Again, I don't know how that works when you're offering like a monthly service for these games that slowly we'll be headed into 60, 70, 80, and even $90 territory. I am very curious to see how the model holds up for them. You have to believe that nobody's making money off any of these servers at some point.
Yeah.
It's almost kind of like streaming services at some point too. Like, sure, it's great to, for a lot of these companies to have their own services, but again, that costs us money. Eventually you have to make your own content, which costs us a lot of money. And if that content is not producing the ratings or the viewership you want, you're losing a lot of money just to keep things floating around. So
yeah, it's a really unfortunate situation because like again, like nobody wants these companies to fail. Nobody wants to see these like games fail and developers having to like scramble for new jobs and stuff like that. But something really has to change, especially when it comes to the AAA like gaming like landscape at the moment because like this is unsustainable, man. Like it's just and it doesn't help when you have like CEOs being completely tone deaf when it comes to the plight of these like game developers and workers that spend their months and years working on these games. Even like freaking like did like Phil Spencer saying that like the people who got laid off at Xbox should use Chat GPT to quote unquote manage their emotions as like a form of therapy as they just lost their jobs. Like how tone deaf can you be? Like that's crazy, man.
it's
Like,
not tone deaf, with everybody racing to this artificial intelligence gold mine. Well, I don't know how much of a gold mine it is. So I guess it's not tone deaf for a guy for Spencer to say something like that, where everybody's trying to race to be he'll be the first to crack AI and how to use it in their own
yes,
workflows. So
but
not
still, it's just
shocking.
like it was just. I personally just thought it was just a little bit insulting to say like
Oh, 100%.
you should
Very
use
tone deaf.
that, but
Mm-hmm.
and again, and I've said this before in the past, like I'm not against like AI as a tool, but and I'm not against companies utilizing it to in order to improve workflow, but not at the cost of replacing actual people. I believe people should work with it. I don't think it should replace people. Is that's one thing that I'm probably going to be saying over and over and over again because people love to make this a black and white issue with AI, and it's just really frustrating to have this conversation if you're on one side of this if you're like against like AI, you're against progress of technology. If you're for AI, you're an AI bro that wants to see humanity get taken over by robots, and you can't win with this conversation. It's so frustrating.
Yeah, but no, but again, it's unfortunate to see Xbox in the way that it's been in.
Very
I don't
much
want to
so.
see a triple. I get it. I know everybody wants to see a AAA company burns and stuff like that. Again, maybe this is a part of them restructuring. Maybe they have to unfortunately trim some of the fat,
Mm-hmm.
which is bad. It's unfortunate to see us come to this situation right now. To see everything that's being acquired to go to the way that it's headed, but you know, I don't know. Hopefully you think by, you know, lessening the load that maybe hopefully they can focus on making some better games. But the way that Xbox has kind of been running their business and the way that a lot of these companies have been running their best businesses, PlayStation and Nintendo included, I'm starting to worry about where a lot of uh, the gaming industry is going in the
Yeah,
next 2 years.
very much so. I mean, it really is as much else I can say on the topic. It's a shame that the Xbox brand is basically in free fall at the moment. Hopefully, they can turn things around and stop screwing with like the lives of like game devs and all the people that make these games what they are. But time will tell. That's all I can really say is time will tell at the moment. Well, and yeah. Well, so what do you think about the whole news regarding Xbox and the whole layoffs? Do you think that the layoffs were basically like, it was basically a matter of time. Do you think this could have been avoided? Let us know what you think in the comments below. And if you like what we do, please rate, comment, and subscribe. I'm Mike with my bro Isaac, and we are saying peace.